Back to our big story tonight. Pope Francis is now resting after what is being called his most symbolic trip ever to the land of Abraham, where he blessed some of the oldest and most persecuted Christian populations in the world. The Diocese of Brooklyn's Msgr Kieran Harrington, ecclesiastical assistant to aid to the church in need, has spent time in Mosul, Erbil, and Tel Aviv. I asked him what he thinks this papal trip meant to the people there.
Well, clearly, the people of Iraq have endured a great hardship for 20 years, the last 20 years where they've been at war, but also then the Christians have suffered as a result of the insurgency, the ISIS insurgency, Islamic fundamentalism, the disillusionment of the government.
There were so many moving moments from this trip. At a mass in Mosul, Pope Francis expressed hope that the struggling Christian minority will hang on, saying, when Christians leave, it does incalculable harm. What do you think about that?
It's a very difficult thing to ask people to stay in a country that has been ravaged by war and there is enormous hostility, and particularly people in Mosul who've experienced the burning of their churches, their homes, the murder and killings. But Christians act as a leaven. Why do I say that? Well, because with Christian communities, there is the building up of a civil society. There is a notion of common good, which is a little different than the tribalism which is so prevalent among the Islamic communities.
You know, some people in Iraq say they're already seeing a shift in the country, but there are many Christians still there that are still fearful. And then there are Christians who have fled who don't want to come back. So do you think the Pope's trip can change that? And what else is needed?
So what has really happened is many of the Christians who lived in Baghdad have moved north. So Erbil is really the Kurdish region. And as you know, the country is divided into very different regions. But in Erbil is really in the beginning of the Kurdish region. There were some tensions between, and I was there actually when there were some tensions between the Iraqi government and the provincial government, the Kurds. A lot of the Christians have moved north towards the Kurdish region. My sense of speaking to people is that they are very much afraid. Many would like to leave. The reason why they don't leave is they can't leave. The idea of going to a UN refugee camp and being in a refugee camp for maybe 10 years, and then finally getting to the West, whether Europe, the United States, maybe Australia, it's just too difficult.
As Christians who live in first world countries, what can we do to support these populations in Iraq?
Well, the first thing that they would ask you to do is to pray for them. The second thing is to be generous to them, because it is very difficult in terms of work. It's very challenging to provide for all the social service needs. I mean, when you consider the great ravages of war, what are the impacts of the ravages of war? You have alcoholism, you have violence in the domestic situation, you have depression, you have PTSD. I mean, these are all conditions that have to be treated. And even after the war is over and there is this sense of peace, that doesn't mean that the terror has gone away. So to be financially contributing to their success. And the last thing is to be advocates. You know, we in our relative peace have to be advocates for our brothers and sisters in the Middle East. How is it that we can stand as agents for the Christian community and the advocates for them in terms of our own governmental policy is very, very important.
And that was Msgr Kieran Harrington, ecclesiastical assistant, aid to the church in need. You can help Christians in Iraq by making a donation at churchinneed.org. If you missed any moment of the trip, you can catch up on all of our exclusive coverage on the Currents News and tablet websites. Just click on the Pope in Iraq tab. There are dozens of videos and countless articles that cannot be missed. If you're watching Currents News on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click on the bell to get updates to all of our newest content, because we are putting your faith in the news.